So pretty good news for Imperial Guard players today. We're finally getting our cavalry back. Witness the return of the Attilan Rough Riders, classical cavalry in Warhammer 40k, but now with hunting lances that punch even harder. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today we're talking about an Imperial Guard release that's made me very happy indeed. I must admit I was really quite disappointed when Rough Riders eventually got moved to Legends from the Astra Militarum Codex, but I did always have a sneaking suspicion that Games Workshop might well choose to re-release them whenever Guard got a new release, and that does appear to be what we're seeing today. We knew that they were likely coming already from that previewed shot of a hunting lance tip, but I must admit I wasn't entirely sure exactly how the form of the release would take, whether it would be true Attilans, Acadian equivalent, or perhaps a plastic version of the Death Riders of Krieg, but it looks like we've got true Attilan Rough Riders back and paying a lot of homage to the previous models for the Guard in the distant past. So Rough Riders are returning then, a classic Guard cavalry unit, and I do feel that among the Guard's many options, these are one of the ones that really exemplify the spirit of the Imperial Guard, facing up to the sheer horrors of the 41st millennium with horses and a lance charge, even if they are using a few practical technological advances to make that lance charge extra devastating. Rough Riders were one of those units that were pulled due to having no official models up for sale. Games Workshop did have a couple of really old school ones, metal kits from the distant past that haven't been on sale in over a decade now, though to be honest I must admit they weren't holding up amazingly well to more modern kit standards. In 8th edition they were still kind of relevant as a unit. Games Workshop did give them some index rules before they got moved over to Legends as they didn't have the models, but I did see more people tending to convert them rather than using the old Games Workshop metal ones, rare as they were. Models wise, it seems that Games Workshop's coming out with a kit of 5 of these guys, and they really are exploring a different regiment for them as opposed to just making Cadians but on horses. The chaps mounting the horses are Attilans. This guy's got an impressive looking moustache on the go and a rather nice looking spiked helm. He's got a hunting lance in his right arm, complete with the explosive grenade tip that they always had previously, slamming into the enemy with an enormous amount of force. There's some nice Imperial heraldry going on the horse's armour plates, out the front and also branded onto the back of the thing. I feel like maybe the weirdest design choice they've gone for is the slightly odd looking helm and the vision slits for the horse itself. I wonder whether or not there'd be any alternate horse heads that you might be able to build this guy with, but either way I still think it looks very cool indeed. They do have some Cadian style shoulder pads on the go as well, so you can still display all the regimental heraldry there. And I suppose if you did want a different sort of look for the riders, you maybe could swap out the heads for say something Cadian or Deathcore if you wanted, depending on what sort of flavour of regiment you wanted to go for, and whether you did want to represent Attillans or something else. The models also appear to have holstered rifles. This guy has his las gun on the right hand side, so they are going to be units that is going to be a bit capable at range as well as melee, it would seem. From the preview shots that we'll take a look at in just a second, it does appear that there's 5 in the box. Previously they did have some options to take a few things like plasma guns and other special weapons. There's none of that clearly on show here that I can see, but it does look like one of them can take some sort of fancy different hunting lance that looks rather electrical and shocking to me. Here we've got a couple more pictures then, 5 of them charging across the battlefield on the left here. The horse helms are all rather similar and do look a little bit sinister on mass like this, I must admit. Certainly a pretty intimidating looking cavalry charge going on. We've got the leader who's got his hunting lance slung across his back and he's got a power sword, and you can see this shock lance type thing on the right here. Looks like that might be some sort of special weapon type upgrade for the squad. Maybe it might have a bit of ranged and melee threat for all I know. Otherwise though, I think that the models are looking pretty good. Really quite nice flowing robes for the riders and the horses, and a variety of different poses, some of them advancing and holding their hunting lances aloft, one of them going down for a cavalry charge. Here's a couple more pictures, the sergeant on the left with a cavalry sabre that's a curved around power sword, a bit more ornamentation on his fancy hat there, and the hunting lance slung across his back, and a bit of a different shot of the models as well. It appears that they might be mounted on the curved Space Marine bike style bases. Looks like slightly largish oval style ones. Overall I do think they've done pretty well with the models. Really quite nice to see the horses return to the 41st millennium. That's not all though, as they've also given us some nice previews of their rules as well. Previously in their index form, before they got moved to Legends, they were a 2 wound toughness 4 cavalry unit. They had a 10-inch move and the option to outflank. Weirdly enough, they were probably more used as special weapon delivery for things like plasma guns or melter guns or things, but were just generally a nice skirmishing option, an annoying unit to tie up enemies and pin them in combat and things. They did have some melee damage, but to be honest they often were a little bit underwhelming on the charge. You might kill a Space Marine if you were lucky, but in general I tended to find that you were more often just best off trying to tie up things and be a nuisance, as opposed to actually dealing enormous damage in combat. Hopefully though, if they are a bit more melee capable in the new edition of the Codex, it would give Guard a sorely needed melee option, as they really don't have that much in the Codex besides Bullgryns. Games Workshop have shown off the profile for the new Hunting Lance. It now looks like there's going to be either the choice of using a frag tip or a melter tip lance. You can see the melter tip spear on the top right there. Basically looks like a melter bomb mounted in a lance format. I wouldn't really want to get hit by that. The frag tip appears to be the anti-infantry one. Each time an attack is made with this weapon profile, each hit roll of a 6 scores another 2 hits. Those hits are made at strength user, AP-1 and damage 1. Previously they used to have a strength of 3 in combat, so that wouldn't be all that impressive in terms of the anti-infantry attack mode if it does turn out to be that. They might give them a strength of 4 I guess to represent the horse on the charge perhaps. The melter tip one does look fairly vicious though. Strength plus 2, so at least strength 5, maybe strength 6, you never know. AP-4 and a flat damage of 3. That looks like a pretty nasty choice that could potentially skewer some heavy infantry. Even Terminators and things are going to be at least fairly fearful of that, even if admittedly we might not get all that many attacks at that profile, and they might well just hit on 4s as with standard guard. Previously the horses would also get attacks with their trampling hooves as well. I think that seems pretty likely, maybe another couple of attacks at strength 3 or 4 and no AP. And as they do have lasguns as well, they might also be able to fire off a couple of shots before they make combat, maybe do a little bit of work to thin out hordes if their attacks aren't quite enough to carry them. Finally, Games Workshop also mentioned a couple of keywords they've got. They do have the core keywords, not that we really know exactly how much that's going to matter in the Guard Codex. In some books it matters quite a lot, in some ones it might be more important whether they're infantry or not. And interestingly, they do have confirmation that that new platoon keyword is indeed going to be a thing. According to Games Workshop, that keyword is what will allow them to receive orders from officers and things, and as with those previous Mordian Glory Leagues, it might well allow them to be taken in some sort of special detachment type form. There was some sort of rumour that you might be able to take a platoon detachment, and it wouldn't cost you extra CP to allow more units to be fielded. Obviously, we won't know exactly how powerful they are until we know the points and supporting rules and things, but I must admit it is a release that makes me very happy. Really nice to see a fun and flavourful unit return to the Guard after being taken away a while back. In any case, let me know what you think of the new models and the new rules. Do you like the way that they've been executed, and how do you think they might function on the table? Let me know down in the comments. And of course, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more Guard discussion and reactions on the way up to the Codex release. I'm looking forward to reviewing the new Codex. I will certainly do a unit review for these guys too. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the content on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked down in the video description if you're interested. Channel patrons get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with the chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.